play, and when that says that's on, it tells us we're rolling. And wait a minute, and we are rolling. I have to get a little introduction so that people watching it from afar, we have many followers on my website.
This doesn't count towards my time, right?
Doesn't count for your time. Doesn't count for your time. And we're rolling here at UCLA on February 1st, 2018, where the sunshine is shining. It's a beautiful day. Eat your heart out, East Coast. And we're about to hear from Daniel, who is going to address the question that the United States incarcerates too many people. That's the question. And he's taken the negative side of that. So, Daniel, you have 5 minutes to persuade us of the negative position. Would you begin?
Topic: the United States incarcerates too many people. This proposition is to be presented in the negative. The resolution I have come up with is as follows. The United States should continue to incarcerate and punish those individuals who have chosen to break laws, no matter how insignificant the law may be, and should also focus on the socioeconomic factors that contribute to crime and mass incarceration. So what's the problem? The opposition argues that prison populations within the United States are too high, and the American population will benefit from more lenient sentencing practices. Between 2.3 and 2.4 million Americans are currently detained in federal, state, private, and federal prison. This amount roughly amounts to 1 out of every 100 Americans. The fee to cover the average cost of incarceration for federal inmates is between $87 and $90 per day. Although at first glance, this price may seem outrageously high, we must weigh this necessary cost against the value of keeping innocent civilians safe. Keeping innocent families and innocent people alive is far more important than the cost of criminals behind bars. The opposition also argues that sentencing practices should be far more lenient against nonviolent offenders. What the opposition fails to recognize is that there are many categories that are counted as nonviolent crimes. Among the many nonviolent crimes are burglary, auto theft, arson, drug trafficking, DUIs, and violations of probation and parole by ex-convicts who have been previously been convicted of violent crimes. About 94.5 of nonviolent offenders have established criminal records, and another 31.4 of those same nonviolent offenders have been previously convicted of crimes such as assault and attempted murder.
Call up the time orally. 3 minutes.
All right. A study by the Bureau of Justice Statistics supports this claim. The study followed a total of 404,000 individuals who were released from prison in 2005. The study found that within 3 years of being released, nearly 68% of those same individuals had returned to prison, and within 5 years, 76% of those same individuals had returned to prison. So how big of a problem? The opposition will have us believe that the prison population is not only a current problem, but it's also a rapidly growing issue. This is incorrect. Over the past decades, there has been a notable drop across the United States and in major cities such as Los Angeles and New York. According to The Economist, in America, murder rates have been at an all-time low within the last 4 years. Additionally, reports indicate that the number of inmates in prisons within the United States has been decreasing. The numbers provided by the Bureau of Justice Statistics show a slight drop in the prison population over the course of a single year. The Bureau of Justice Statistics explains the imprisonment rate within the United States has decreased by 2% between 2015 and 2016.
2 minutes left.
So why do we have the problem? One factor is education. Studies show that one characteristic prevalent among many inmates and ex-convicts is the lack of education. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, only 17.4% of nonviolent criminals have graduated from high school. And another issue is employment after prison. After being released from prison, a number of ex-convicts find it nearly impossible to find any legal work. This unfortunate truth is what drives many of these same individuals to commit crimes. A CNN report reveals that research from Harvard Kennedy School followed 102 men and women who had been released from state prison in Massachusetts and found that 6 months to a year after their release, just over half had found a job. So what is the solution? The solution to the problem of crime in American society and the vast prison population can be found using the three-pronged approach. So first, we should concentrate on education reform by tackling the issue before it even gets started. Education will help prevent future crimes. Creating more opportunities for adolescents to be able to gain higher education is a key factor in reducing the number of potential criminals in the future. Also, greater employment will help to reduce the number of crimes for ex-convicts. So, what are the advantages? The first advantage is the most important one, and it will help increase the safety and well-being of the general population with criminals off the street. The second is will not be seen immediately, but can be seen in the future. With education reform, less criminals will be on the street because more people will be able to get better jobs as education increases throughout the United States. And finally, by the third advantage ensures that established criminals are able to create meaningful lives for themselves. Programs like Employ will help ex-convicts find employment after prison and will steer them away from a life of crime.
That's why I believe that the resolution is not true and the United States does not incarcerate too many people.
That's why I believe the resolution is not true and that the United States does not incarcerate too many people.
Thank you. I now stand open for cross-examination.
I now stand open to cross-examination.
What was his time?
5:15.
Very good. Okay. Let's hear a cross-examination from Z. Yin Lin. Oh, wait a minute. This is the wrong thing. I'll do it from the roll. Let's hear a Ryan Sabilio cross-examine, please. Come to the front quickly. Put the paper down or in your pocket. You don't need it anymore. Okay. Face the camera, not the opponent. Again, you're trying to persuade me. Just stand close together so we can see both of you. Yeah. Good. Okay. Just right. Oh. Yeah. Okay. 2 minutes. Boom.
Okay, so you brought up the point of employment after prison, so I was wondering if you could elaborate more on the specific program outcomes of that.
Look at me, not your opponent.
There is a program in Minnesota where the corrections facilities allow prisoners to get training while in prison.
Look at me, not him.
And also help them to find employment after prison. This showed that over 50% of those ex-convicts did not return to prison within a year after being released. So employment does help steering away from prison.
And then you also brought up a statistic that within the first 3 years, I believe, of release, 68% of the released population were reincarcerated.
Yes.
I was wondering if you, I had heard that it wasn't reincarceration, but reconvicted of a crime. Could you kind of specify whether or not they were?
It's a mixture of both. Some people violate the parole, or some people violate some type of probation. So yeah, also some are also convicted of new crimes. So it's a number of things that contribute to the reincarceration.
And then could you please elaborate on the extent or the comparison between the effects of nonviolent criminals and violent criminals released after incarceration?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so could you please separate the difference between the release of nonviolent and violent criminals within the population after incarceration?
I didn't really look into nonviolent criminals. Violent criminals. I didn't look into violent criminals.
Yeah. What's time do you have?
8 seconds.
8 seconds, that's time. What was your name, sir?
Ryan Sabillo.
Ryan what?
Sabillo, Sabillo.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ryan. Have a seat. You stay up there for a couple of quick comments. I'm going to get some comments quickly, so hold me to about 3 minutes. Just count it down for me. But I want to help people out so they know what to do better. and what not to do. It's too late for Daniel, but not for the rest of you. Let's start at the very beginning. Daniel, do you know what the Chicago style of footnoting is?
No, I've always just done MLA.
Right? And did you know this class on the syllabus? And I've orally stressed, and we've said, Mickey said it, we use Chicago. Did you hear that?
Yes, I
So
best.
you decided, screw it, I'm doing MLA?
No, I based my
Or
citing
I ain't
style.
gonna learn a new system? Or what's the
I
dealio?
based my citation system on the prompt that you provided on the class website.
Yeah, and I told you that's MLA, and I said, don't follow that. I said, follow Chicago.
Right. I must have been out of class. I didn't hear you say that. So.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. Well, in case any of you missed that, can we all say the word Chicago, please?
Chicago.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for skipping the definitions. We'd like you to look up more in your reading. Hold the paper up a little higher and look up more so you know it a little better. It's not just reading the whole thing. You skipped the definitions, and that was fine. You told us what the problem was, and is the problem that is your problem was a little bit odd. You said that we said the opposition argues that we have too many people in who get long sentences and it costs a lot of money. But then you said your big point was people that have that are in there from these vague laws smoking a joint are very rare. That was your point, right?
Yeah, that was one.
Yeah. And that was a good point, and that was well made. Now let me say something. You have to select your best piece of evidence. And what my objection, Daniel, is you didn't state the year hardly ever of your evidence, and I want the year and the citation of your evidence said orally. I'll repeat that again. And watch this tonight on the video so you'll hear it again. But I want the evidence fully cited orally in your presentation. Okay? And this is the way it was done in the other classes. You want to look up more. On his slug lines, listen to this. The opposition will argue that many people are behind bars as a result of fake laws that may only possibly to avoid violating. The truth is, such cases are very rare. What's wrong with that as a slug line? What do we say about your claims? What was supposed to be the nature of our claims? Short, thank you. Remember to stand up next time. That was a listen. It's supposed to be very short and simple. So, you want to say vague laws are rare, and then get right to the point. I had to dig in and find out what the point was. So if you have long and wordy claims, clean them up, folks. Make them, go get the essence of them down and do it that way. You want to time yourselves. You don't want to spend so much time at the top on what's the problem and how big is the problem, because those two really can be combined. What's the problem to be said very briefly, and how big is the problem is where you're going to get your payoff, because that's where you get your significance, right? That's where you get your dead bodies on the flow sheet, right? Yeah. Why do we have the problem? And I want you to all remember to number the claims that as it was numbered in the outline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So number it the way it was numbered there, right? So you number them, okay? And so why do we have the problem? You said it was education and unemployment. Does everyone agree that's the only reason we have the problem? Is that if we had better education and we had jobs for everyone, we wouldn't have any problem with crime? What else is there? What else comes to mind?
Natural evil tendencies.
Right. There are some people that are evil. There are some people that just are misfits. Haven't figured out how to behave in society. And for those people that are repeat predators, we have said, and this is what the broken windows philosophy of policing brought about, was you don't let windows stay broken, because it's a cue to the community that, all hell can break. We should fix them immediately, right? And secondly, you tell the community that you're serious about policing, and you do the policing of effect, and you enforce the law. Well, I would like you to have talked about other aspects. So when you do your inherency of why do we have the problem, be sure to address all the major causal forces and not just those two. On the solution, I said in the outline, I'm looking for a mandate and means. To be real specific, what are you going to do, what's your mandate, and how are you going to do it? So a little more specificity I needed. Okay? You kind of skipped over and didn't spend a lot of time on what we call solvency, or will the solution work? And that's pretty important, because a lot of people will say, well, it sounds good, but really, what evidence do you have that rehabilitation has ever worked? And you can say, well, I had the Minnesota example. I worked there. If it worked in Minnesota, maybe it'll work nationwide. See? Yeah. So read every major heading. Don't skip solvency. Don't skip advantages, right? Advantages, I like your advantages. A little bit more structure, but that's where you get your real persuasive stuff. And get to your on balance at the end within the 5 minutes and 15 seconds. This is the wrong footnoting style. Let me end on a positive note. Can we give Daniel a great hand for going first? Thank you, Daniel. And I thought, just one last comment, I thought you handled the cross-examination fairly well, except you were thrown a little bit on the issue of, did you research violent or non-violent criminals? Yeah. And that's kind of a really important distinction, because, there's a lot of people that are arguing, that a lot of violent criminals are being let out into the rubric that they were there because a victimless crimes, i.e., fraud, or they had 50 kilos. That's a victimless crime. Really? Okay. Thank you, Daniel. I'm another volunteer. See, you can see it was very simple. Solante, go on up there, please. Don't stop the camera. How's the battery doing? Oh, it's doing great. Yeah, okay. Rock and roll. There you go. Ryan. Let me give you graphics. Ryan Sabali. Where are you? Let me go to R. one comment for you, Ryan, and I like the fact that you had written down prepared questions. That was excellent. Just, it would be good to listen to the answer, and if you have a follow-up, if they don't answer the question, not just go on to the next one. Okay? So that would be what I would suggest there. Yes, please. Stand up, please. Say your name.
Francisco?
Hi, friends.
I just had a question about the cross-examine. What exactly are we supposed to ask? I've been writing stuff down. I'm not sure what to...
Have you read the article on the website?
Well,
Cross-examination?
I guess, no, I didn't.
There's an article on the website that kind of details goals that you have for cross-examination, different things that you can do and ask, and how you can phrase a question, the way you can phrase open and close-ended questions, and how you can have certain goals. And I wrote this with the dean of the law school at Michigan, and we have a system of, we believe that cross-examination is a system of communication that gets the flow of information into the jurors' ears. So we want to control the information that the jurors hear with our questions by structured in such a way that we get the answer we want. Okay? And there's a model that's listed there. So take her, you didn't sing it.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
Right, okay. Good. All right, well, check it out. It'll be good for you. Okay, how's she doing there in the focus of it all? Yeah, great. Okay, all right, let's see. I have your Rachel Meyer. Yeah, good. Okay. Big N.
Wait, are you waiting? You aren't doing like any introduction?
I will. Yeah, I sure will. I'm not going to say the sunshine is shining, but I will say I'd like you to stand in the power stance, feet wider than your shoulders. I would like, if you can, remember to walk 3 times on your major points, so you're not just a static person standing in one spot. I would like you to have some vocal variety. I would like you to have yellowed certain key words and emphasize so it's a persuasive document. Yeah, all those things I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a monotone read that people can zone out on. So, and of course, you all need to be taking notes because you're going to be one of you are going to be called to do a cross-examination. Yeah. Okay, so we're about now to hear from Rachel Myers, who's going to take the affirmative, I believe, that says the United States does incarcerate too many people.
Wait.
You're affirmative, right?
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to figure out if I just did the whole entire assignment wrong.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh no. Okay.
Well, the topic was that the United States incarcerates too many people.
Oh yeah.
So
okay,
when
okay.
you're affirmative, you have to prove that we do incarcerate too many people, and that we should probably let a few of them out.
Okay.
Are you with it?
We're good.
Is that we good?
Yep. Okay. So.
Didn't mean to scare you there, old Rachel.
Good.
Okay.
So the topic is that the United States incarcerates.
Just a little more, Rachel. Yeah. Louder.
The topic is that the United States incarcerates too many people, and this proposition is to be presented from the affirmative viewpoint. So what is the problem? Laws have become harsher since the 1970s and have continued to get harsher over time, resulting in more and more inmates in prison. According to a 2010 article from The Economist, in the past, voters demanded stricter laws which resulted from an increase in violent crime, and politicians have continued to enact laws that have grown increasingly harsher. In addition to this, incarceration is incredibly costly, thus taking away valuable funds from other state and federal causes. As is explained in a 2017 article from the U.S. News and World Report, the annual cost of imprisoning an inmate in California is roughly $75,000, and in New York it costs $69,000. In addition to this, overcrowding results in poorly monitored and maintained prisons, which not only affects the quality of life for inmates, but also reduces inmates' access to beneficial programs and resources. As it's explained in the 2017 article from the University of Pacific Law Review, as prisons become overpopulated, prison administrators provide fewer programs and activities, fewer opportunities for education, and fewer opportunities for prison employment. So how big is the problem? According to the 2017 article from the University of Pacific Law Review, the United States correctional population is made up of around 7 million people. This includes prison inmates, inmates in local jails, and those on probation and parole. According to the 2010 Economist article, Too Many Laws, Too Many Prisoners, in the U.S. as a whole, around 1 in every 31 adults are under some form of correctional supervision. So why do we have the problem? Mandatory minimum sentences put prisoners away for extended periods of time, and in many cases, the sentence doesn't fit the crime. The 2015 Economist article, Locked Up for Too Long, explains that mandatory minimum sentences result in harsher sentences than would be imposed by federal judges considering all of the factors in the case. According to a 2017 article from the Journal of Legal Studies, there are strict mandatory minimum sentences even for nonviolent crimes such as drug trafficking. A 2016 study conducted by the Brennan Center found that close to 364,000 inmates are behind bars for nonviolent crimes such as drug possession, drug trafficking, and larceny or robbery, many of whom are imprisoned and will continue to be imprisoned because of mandatory sentencing laws. In addition to this, recidivism rates are high. A 2016 review by the United States Sentencing Commission revealed that around 17% of released offenders are rearrested within 1 year of their release. The 2016 United States Sentencing Commission review also found that there is an association between inmates' education level and their likelihood of rearrest. According to the review, offenders that received less than a high school education have a rearrest rate of 60.6%. In contrast to this, offenders that are college graduates have a rearrest rate of 19.1%. So what is the solution? Mandatory minimum sentences for non-violent crimes should be eliminated. According to a 2014 article for the Contemporary Justice Review, this would allow state and local administrators to have more control over prison admissions and discharges, as well as lift restrictions preventing early release for eligible inmates. In addition to this, prisons should focus on inmate programs such as educational programs, inmate employment, and other resources that are meant to support inmates. The same 2014 article from the Contemporary Justice Review explains that such programs exist to increase inmates' marketability once released. Also, a stronger focus should be placed on alternatives to incarceration for non-violent, low-level criminals that do not pose a significant threat to public safety. According to a 2017 article from the Prison Journal, several studies have found reductions in recidivism between 10 to 30% when offender treatment is a significant component of intensive supervision programs. The same article also gives the example of an analysis of Hawaii's HOPE program, an intensive probation program focused on swiftly imposing sanctions for violations as a way to deter future transgression, which found that 55% of participants were less likely to be arrested for new crimes. So will this solution work? The 2016 study from the Brennan Center found that releasing the nonviolent, low-level offenders would reduce the prison population by nearly 25%. It also explains that if these prisoners were released, it would result in a cost savings of nearly $20 billion per year and almost $200 billion over 10 years. This money could then be reinvested in proven crime prevention tactics and in alternatives to incarceration proven to reduce recidivism. The decrease in inmates also frees up significant funds and resources that could be utilized by current inmates, such as education or employment programs that provide inmates with skills that will help them reintegrate into society upon their release. So what are the advantages to my proposal? Reducing prison populations consequently reduces the financial burden that governments are facing regarding prisons. By focusing more on alternatives to incarceration, nonviolent offenders would be able to take part in correctional programs that suit their needs and are proven to reduce the rate of recidivism. Not only are these programs beneficial for the offenders, but a reduction in recidivism benefits the justice system as a whole and allows taxpayer money that would have been spent on the corrections industry to be put towards other causes.
Time.
507.
What?
On,
507? I guess 907. Well, that's it.
on balance.
Oh, on balance, which outweighs. By doing away with mandatory minimum sentences, prisons will be significantly relieved of overcrowding and billions of dollars will be saved. This money can then be put towards issues that benefit the American people, whether it's infrastructure, education, or other important programs.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. I now stand open for
I now
questions.
stand open for cross-examination.
Points of clarification. Yeah, okay, let us hear from Serena. And, yeah, let's do that first. Okay. Serena, feel free to move to the front. Yeah. Uh-huh. That's good, yeah.
Do I just start?
Are you Serena? Okay, Serena what?
Wayne.
Serena Wayne. No, okay. Is there two Serenas in here?
I think there's just one. It's like near the bottom. Wayne.
Yeah, I don't have you in here, but yeah, that's cool.
Let me pull it out. It's right here.
Yeah. Okay, fine, yeah, go ahead.
Wait, no, I'm right there.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's not who I called on, but that's cool.
Oh.
I called on somebody named... No, whatever, let's go on.
Okay, yeah. Could you explain more about the HOPE program that you were talking about, the Hawaii one?
Yeah, so it's in Hawaii, obviously, and it's a correctional program, so it's essentially a probation
Look
program.
at me.
And it has basically, under the terms of your probation, if you violate any
Stand in power
terms,
stance, both of you.
you are automatically imprisoned for a short period of time to kind of prove a point. Just to say, you know, if you violate the terms, like you will, there is a punishment. It's just to kind of show like an immediate punishment to deter them from violating the terms in the future.
But wouldn't you still be incarcerating people by having that program?
It's not the same as like a federal prison.
Right.
It's like a local jail, and like I said, it's short term, so it's you know, a week to a couple weeks. So it's not like long-term inmates that eats up all the money.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And then for the for reducing mandatory minimum sentencing, do you think that would cause like bias? Do you think there's like a possibility that the judge could be like biased or unjust?
I do, but I know that there are also regulations in place that kind of try to prevent that from happening.
Right.
I haven't looked too much into that, so I couldn't specifically tell you too much, but some of my research did indicate that there are, in fact, guidelines by the United States Sentencing Committee, which kind of lay some guidelines for that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. Do you think that, or could you maybe give like one example on what this guideline is? Like, would it be like specifics that you would require the judge, or?
Unfortunately, I did not read the exact guideline.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know it either. Should I keep going? Oh, I thought this.
Stop time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, stay up there and let me talk about the cross-section and you can have a seat, Serena. I want to compliment you on having a follow-up question. You want to signpost where you're asking the question. At first I thought it was a little bit of a softball question. You know, tell me about the HOPE program. Oh, it's a great program. It works beautifully. It's fabulous. It has great solvency. It, you know, the recidivism rate is low. It's a wonderful program. What just happened, to go back to Evan and I's model of information going into the ears of your jurors? All positive information went into their ears, see? Versus the closed-ended question was, you didn't document, or you didn't tell these jurors any benefits or how the whole program actually works, right? Well, I can't help, but you didn't tell them in your speech, right? Right. Different, see? See my point? Okay. On your second one, mandatory minimums, this was confusing. My understanding was you were eliminating mandatory minimums. Am I wrong on that?
No.
Okay, so eliminating mandatory minimums, that was her position, that was her mandate. And so when they eliminate mandatory minimums, you're saying then the judges
Because
have
it's
too
up to
much
their discretion, right.
and they're going to either throw the book at people or be too lenient, right? And we just got nowhere on that question. It was just sort of a funk, right? I don't know, you don't know, you didn't have any examples of propensity where it happened. We just sort of got left in the middle. Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice job. Okay. I want to compliment Rachel, and I'm going to walk around and I want you to see her brief. This is the Chicago style of footnoting. And did you notice as she read, she qualified every source fully with the where it came from and the date. You notice she only read key pieces of evidence. She didn't read everything she had in her brief. She picked and chose. And that was very good. Well, you skipped the definitions. Thank you for that. You got the problem down succinctly. Harsh laws that the people demanded. Yep. And the cost. Here's an example of what I'm talking about, folks. You know, okay. Come on, $75,000. Stress this, you know. And when you have these big moneyed articles, $200,000, $200 million. Make your words stand out so you're communicating ideas and not just being a robot. We have to pick it out. See what I'm saying, Rachel? But your footnoting was excellent. Your variety of sources from the deep internet, you had the law review, which I loved. How big was the problem? You understood that perfectly. You told us it was 7 million people. And you also had, and one thing I want you to notice, by the way, which you didn't have, but she said, why do we have the problem? I told you there's 2 kinds of inherency, structural and attitudinal. She gave you structural inherency, which said we have mandatory minimums that the judges have to follow. So we have to put lots of criminals away because they have no choice. Yeah. So that was a good example of a structural inherent reason why we have the problem. Attitudinal inherency is the folks demand it. And then the lawmakers pass the laws and pass. That makes it into a structural problem. Recidivism rate high, and I was wondering if you were able to really address this in your solvency. So one thing to remember, Rachel, is that whatever problems you isolate in your harms, you should need to solve them in your plan. So be careful of what you wish for. I like your evidence about the level of high school and college education. So if you have some sort of educational part of your plan, that probably would help. As I said to the last gentleman, I want to hear my mandate is, my means are for my proposal, okay? Will the solution work? I want the narrative to stand out a little more, folks. When you're giving your talk, you're saying, so, hello everybody, what's the problem? Now that I've told you the problem, how big is the problem? Now, you know we got a problem, we got a big problem. I want to tell you, why do we have the problem? See what I'm doing with my voice? I'm making the narrative jump out at people so they really can follow it. We have a problem because of the man from here. Okay. So now you have a problem, we know why we have a problem. You price coming logically to the question, what's the solution? Well, the solution is truthful. Now you know the solution. Will the solution work? Well, I've got evidence that will work in the state, work in the state, work in the city. What are the advantages? By the way, on your advantages, by the way, on your will the solution work, 200 billion saved over 10 years. That's where your voice jumps out. So we can save 200 billion over 10 years, okay? But otherwise, you say 200 billion over 10 years. See my point? Communicate. Drama. Wake your audience up. Be different. Have vocal variety. Make it interesting. Number your advantages, folks. I have 3. 1 will reduce financial burden. We'll get rid of nonviolent offenders, and we'll reduce recidivism. 3 will reduce recidivism. Okay? So number 1, use your hands. 1, 2, 3. The accent that you've got 3. Okay? Really excellent job. I'll just real quickly pass this around so you can see how it should look. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, next. How's the old
We're almost out.
dealio? Yeah, 41. Good. Okay, we'll need a substitute camera operator. How about Kelsey Grammer? Will you run it? Yeah. Okay, you're crucial now because we're coming down to the crunch time. We usually get at least 50 minutes. Sometimes we get 60. But if that thing goes red, just say, even if she's in the middle of a sentence, say stop and push that side button. See that side button?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And we are going to take the opposite side of the prison controversy, and we're looking for this. We don't want wasted camera space. We are looking for waist up shot, and when she moves, you go boom, 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 and like that. And keep that whiteboard in the middle. We're going to hear from Mary Harrotunian. Boy, that's a mouthful. And she's going to take the negative side of the prison debate. Question: the United States should not incarcerate so many people.
Do you mind just actually telling me the time as we go on?
Yeah.
Orally.
Perfect.
Yeah, orally.
Yeah.
Did it start?
Feet a little wider
As you
apart.
start speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, I'm Mary, and I will be arguing for
Hi,
the
Mary.
negative stance that the United States should not incarcerate so many people. What is the problem? Most people seem to argue that the fact that the rate of incarceration is too high in America. According to The Economist article titled Jailhouse Nation, that was published on June 20th of 2015, about 5% of the world's population, America has 5% of the world's population, and it contains 25% of the world's prisoners, which is why the rate seems so high in comparison to the others. However, the real issue at hand is that the increase of the amount of crime occurring in the United States is the reason for this. In 2016, violent crimes increased nationally by 4.1%, and homicides rose by 8.6%, which was found on the article in the New York Times published in September of 2017. If it were not for the prison system that we have set up, the crime rate would actually be worse than what it already is. Between 2006 and 2014, 22 states saw an increase in their prison populations, while also experiencing an average drop of crime rate of 20%, according to the article found on Atlantic by Julika Lajunia-Williams, published on June of 2016. How big is this problem? Our incarceration itself is actually not an issue, surprisingly. The rates have gone down throughout the years. According to an article found on the Washington Post, published on January of 2017, in 2015, the United States incarceration rate fell to 670 inmates per 100,000 United States residents, whereas in 2007 to 2008, it hit its peak to 760 inmates per 100,000 U.S. residents. Now, why do we have this problem? This problem is due to the crime rate being so high, and this could be because of the economic hardships that people are going through gangs or any violent attacks, and also because of the the readily access that Americans have to deadly weapons. According to the LAPD, violent crime in Los Angeles climbed to 19.9% and property crime increased to 10.3% through December of 2015 compared to the same time last year, which was according to the LA Times article published in December of 2015. Also, crime rate is so high due to the readily access Americans have to deadly weapons. The strongest evidence for this is due to the aggravated assault data, suggesting that the right to carry laws can increase this crime rates by 8%, according to the Stanford News article published in November of 2014. Now, what's the solution? The solution would be to decrease crime rate. And by doing so, we could create more in-prison educational programs to ensure that inmates do not commit any more crimes when they are released, and to prevent and reduce any repeat offenses. According to the Orange County Registrar, the Royal Oaks article published in September of 2013, within 3 years after prisoners are released, 70% of them have been caught and convicted again. Also, there's also been, if we alter the structure in which evidence is processed for investigations, that could also be a solution. DNA can be used to identify criminals with incredible accuracy with the advancement in technology that we have today. Will the solution work? A study of the Department of Policy Studies found that $1 million investment in incarceration would prevent about 350 crimes, while this same investment will prevent about 600 crimes if it were put into educational systems, according to the article published by the Prison Study Project. Now, for DNA evidence testing, the New York authorities linked a man through DNA evidence to at least 22 sexual assaults and robberies that terrorized the city, which was done in 1999, and that is according to the United States Department of Justice article that was published in 2017. Now, the advantages to this proposal are due to the DNA testing. With the advancements that we have, criminals will be more hesitant to commit the crimes if it's going to be so easy to get caught. In prison education systems, if the investments get placed there, it could actually save the prison money. And it's good because prisoners would come out as new people into the society. And lastly, prisoners themselves deserve to be in prison because of the crimes that they have committed, and it would not be fair for them to just be walking freely through society. Thus, the United States should be incarcerating so many people. I now stand aside for cross-examination and points of evaluation.
Thank you very much. What was the time?
4:50.
4:50. So you actually had 25 seconds. Okay, stand the power chance for your cross-examination. Okay, let's hear from Jeffrey Sipple. Mr. Sipple comes to the front. Okay, he's a little taller, so you have to make a little adjustment. Can you get them both in?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sipple. Everyone get to see their excellent work. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sipple, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. In the beginning of your argument, state that the real issue here is an increase in crime rate.
Yes.
Right. But later on, you said that as prison populations have increased in most states, it was 22 states?
Yes.
Crime rate has decreased. So are crime rates increasing or decreasing?
The point of that was that even though incarceration is high, the crime rates are still, that's the reason why incarceration is high, and that's why crime rates are decreasing.
Okay, the crime rates are decreasing because of the high levels of incarceration.
Exactly.
And another point you mentioned, the solution is using DNA to better prosecute criminals. A few questions about that. Do you have any evidence to back up it being a particularly effective method of prosecution?
Well, aside from the New York example that I gave, in 2001, there were called the Green River Killings, where DNA evidence provided an immense breakthrough in a series of crimes that remained unsolved for years. And that actually was because of DNA testing, even though they had a large task force assigned to the case and a $15 million investigation going on.
Okay. And as far as implementing this DNA testing, do you have any plans for how to do it or how much it might cost?
It would be difficult for the funding, but because the crime increase is so high in America, it would be a positive thing to invest in.
That is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Sippel. Okay, Mr. Sippel, good cross-examination. Your first question was a war. You didn't get much out of it. It was clarification, right? But your question on DNA was probing and good, and you asked good probing and follow-up questions on workability, got her to admit. The only thing I would have followed up with saying, so you have one example where it worked, and just one you can call it an anecdotal example of where it was succeeding. Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sippel. Mary, really nice job. I like the way, I always start off with positive. I like the way you selected your evidence. Your slug lines were nice and succinct. You nicely skipped your definitions. I like your New York Times evidence about the increase in violent crime going up. There is some pretty good evidence about, again, it's just California, about the crime rate going up in California after we released so many people from the prisons here. Again, it's just one state, but it's, being seen nationwide in other states too. Jailhouse nation, yeah. How big is the problem? Yes. Yeah. And I like the way that you explained that, Mr. Sippel, that, the more we incarcerate, the better the crime rate goes down, and that was good. You had this gun thing in there, and right, and but you didn't do much in your plan with guns, and so I'd like to see you do something in your plans more with guns. If you're going to talk about it as a problem, are you going to make it a higher offense to use guns? Confiscate them? I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do, yeah. Your DNA idea was a novel one, so I like that. Will your solution work? You had a Department of Public Policy study that said $1 million investment would yield the solution to 350 crimes, so that was a good piece of solvency evidence. That tells me that, Mary, you do understand what solvency evidence works, how it works, and you were able to locate it and find it, and I like that. And I like your, for prison education, working from the Prison Studies Project, that was a good piece of evidence. I will repeat again, number your advantages, okay? And use your hands, use your gestures to do that. And you left out the on-balance step of your analysis. Right? Right, yes. Other than that, really excellent job. Thank you, Mary. All right. I need a minute, but do we have a volunteer that will go up front? Oh, how's this doing? Okay, pretty good, huh? Yeah. Well, 54, and it's still pretty green, isn't it? Wow, this is a good battery, huh? So you're gonna take this back over. Keep an eye on this battery. I don't.
Just in case it goes.
Yeah, in case it goes down fast.
Okay.
Give me a moment, so just stand up there and banter with the class while I get caught up on these.
How's everyone doing?
So good. How are you?
Good, thank
Oh my
you.
god.
I'm really kidding.
So
Whatever.
good. Wait. Oh, thank you.
Okay, how's the battery doing?
It's like a little, it went down a little bit.
Okay, keep your eye on it.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Okay. Do I have your briefs already? Again, Mr. Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
I'm going to be presenting this in the negative view. So this proposition will be presented from the negative viewpoint. The United States should incarcerate the amount of people it currently does, and those people already incarcerated should not be released early. So what is the problem? Proponents of reducing incarceration often look towards the financial burdens that imprisonment costs for taxpayers, and they're right to do so. According to the
A
Economist
little louder, please.
According to the Economist article in 2010, in California, to house one inmate for a single day, it costs $50,000.
Good.
However, this cost is often perceived as being much higher than it actually is, because in reality, prisoners often aren't incarcerated for an extended period of time. Even though records from the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2016 report that 97% of the prison population received sentences longer than 1 year, most prisoners weren't incarcerated for more than a year. In fact, only 1% of males, which accounts for 93% of the prison populations, were imprisoned for longer than a year. Moreover, there aren't that many criminals in the United States. The National Justice Institute in 2016 reports that only 2 to 5% are responsible for producing over half the total crimes committed in the US. The criminals that we do have, though, are a huge problem. In fact, a special report by the Department of Justice in 2014 says that 76% of released prisoners are reconvicted of a crime within the first 5 years of release. Thus, we see that patterns of criminality are both cyclical and persistent over time. Therefore, incarceration is not the main problem. Recidivism is. So how big is this problem? Currently, incarceration alone offers little aspect for preparation of prisoners' re-entry into functioning society. This claim is easily supported by the prior statistics from recidivism rates from the Department of Justice. At the same time, incarceration rates are on the decline. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2016, incarceration rates in the United States are the lowest they've been since 1997. This is problematic when we see that the incarceration alternatives produce negative effects on local crime rates. An article from the New York Times in 2015 points out the case of the Probation Subsidies Act, an incarceration alternative in California that resulted in a 218% increase in the number of violent crimes committed. So why do we have this problem? With the lack of adequate funding of prisons, it should come as no surprise that we have this level of recidivism. Firstly, there isn't enough room in these facilities. A press release from the American Civil Liberties Union in 2016 found that overcrowding of prisons facilities led to increased violence and decreased access to mental and physical health care for inmates. Living in these conditions, it is therefore not surprising that individuals come out of prison without the tools necessary to succeed post-incarceration. So what is the solution? As we've discussed, letting people out does not work. However, recidivism can be addressed by investing more money into prisons. As of 2016, the Department of Justice reports numerous programs already being implemented that exist to help target the sociological underpinnings of crime and recidivism. Some prisons offer occupational training for inmates. Others address substance abuse and mental health problems that's backed by evidence-based research and educational attainment, which also helps to reduce recidivism rates. According to a research study by the Rand Corporation in 2013, inmates who receive an education are 43% less likely to be reincarcerated. Moreover, this study reports that every dollar spent on prisoner education results in a savings of $4 to $5 off of the incarceration costs. Because of these opportunities, we should invest more money in prison-based rehabilitation programs. But will this solution work? We have discussed that these are viable options for reducing recidivism, but a major concern for this proposition is, of course, funding. However, the Department of Justice has plenty of resources to ameliorate this dilemma. Among the many controversies surrounding the Department of Justice's spending habits, there exist numerous unnecessary programs that waste taxpayer dollars. For example, the Confidential Source Program, according to National Review in 2017, was found in an audit to have unnecessarily wasted a total of $237 million over the course of 2010 to 2015. This money could have easily gone to programs that could target recidivism causes. Therefore, keeping inmates incarcerated to help implement these recidivism programs is both effective in its implementation and economically viable. So what are the advantages to this proposal? This proposal specifically offers a sustainable long-term approach to crime reduction that encompasses the aspects of social ecology of crime. From mental health and substance abuse treatment to pathways of education and economic development, prison-based rehabilitation programs have the ability to address the needs of incarcerated individuals and reduce recidivism. Which outweighs? On balances, the benefits of incarceration clearly outweigh the disadvantages. Prisons serve as a crucible for positive social change. They safely contain the most dangerous portion of our population and have the potential to serve as a means of rehabilitation for others. By continuing with the current rate of incarceration and implementing prison-based rehabilitation programs, we have the ability to successfully limit the amount of dangerous people who are reintroduced into society through early release programs and work to rehabilitate individuals who account for most of the crime in the United States, with support from funding that is already available to the Department of Justice. I now stand open to cross-examination and clarification.
Time.
5:25.
5:25. Okay. Alexandra Gibbons. Process.
There's my notes.
Again, please.
So you said that the Probation Subsidies Act equaled an increase of 218% of crimes. Why would the state of New York implement an act that would, was this predicted at all to create such an increase in crime, or why was a drastic position put in place? Because I'm sure the state of New York would not implement something that they would assume would be so devastating to the crime rate.
Look at the judges, yeah.
This was an unexpected consequence of the Probation Subsidies Act that happened in California. And it resulted in a 218 increase in the number of crimes committed because prisoners were released from incarceration.
And you are claiming that adding preventative maintenance while these prisoners are in prison will assist with these recidivism rates?
Over here.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Incarceration, because we have access to this population and they have no choice to attend these rehabilitation programs, it mitigates all of the frustrations that prison alternative programs have run into, such as non-committal, non-attendance. So,
They don't show up after they get out.
yeah, so they
Other
won't come to the
McDonald's,
program.
yeah.
While we have them in prison, we have the unique ability to directly address them in an environment that is safe and able to fully implement the program to its entirety and see the most effective results.
Okay, and then on a different topic, you claimed that I think it was the confidential support program, the government program?
Yeah.
You claim that that government program wasted over $2 million. At what point are you someone to say that the government was to waste this money when they thought that it was a beneficial program and something that they should be spending their money on?
So the confidential source program was, the audit came from a government audit of wasteful spending in 2017, and it was actually a wasteful spending of $237 million, not $2 million.
Got 2 minutes?
It's been around like 140.
And you're saying letting people out of prison does not work, so add money to prisons. However,
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Alex, really quickly,
Henry's okay.
yeah, pretty good, yeah. Ryan, yeah. Let me give you feedback, yeah.
I know it was bad.
have them written down and read the article and be prepared to ask not only questions but follow-up questions and listen a little better to what he was saying so we have his thesis down. You had his big point down about you got the state wrong, but it was California. But he was able to come back and say, yes, it was horrible. The crime went way up. That's what I was talking about earlier. So, okay, thank you. Ryan, yeah, pretty good job, yeah. A different approach. I like that. One thing I want to say to you, though, is that, I'm sort of picking at straws here, but I want you to think about this seriously. You talk about the fact that about 2 to 5% of the people in our prison are not rehabilitatable, right? They're just bad thieves, right? We shouldn't let them out. We shouldn't. They just do the revolving door and they go out and murder and maim and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And what was unclear to me was if you were factoring those people into your rehabilitation study. That was my only suggestion or point, okay? I liked your California thing about small prisons essential for safety, and I loved your point that incarceration is not the main problem, recidivism is. That was very good. In the New York Times Probation Act, California resulted in a 200, with your voice please, 18% increase in the number of violent crimes. That's enough to get a governor recall,
And you talk about homicides, 308%.
I know, if he wasn't gone already. Anyway, yeah, and crimes go on, so you didn't read it, but it was good, yeah. Why do we have the crimes? Yeah, you chose a different tack to talk about, and that was good. American Civil Liberties Union. I like, by the way, letting people out is not the solution. They got to get the rehabilitation inside, and that was good. So that was very good. I like the RAND study. It's a very respected institution. I probably used to work there. It did a really good thing. Cited a lot, for monetary savings you put into education. You get a lot of long-term benefits all down the line. That's good, yeah. Heather McDonald, yeah, I really like her stuff, invited her to come and speak here during our debate on divestment of Israel, and she's really a very, very in-depth, knowledgeable person about a lot of things. Very good writer, too. Which outweighs, you got to that, and you went a little over. Your work cited, we're good. You did a good job. Thank you very much. What do you think? Should we do one more? Yeah. We have time for one more? Maybe not, huh? And the camera will probably die, so why don't we not chance it, huh? Yeah.